Fantastic.
All right.
So this conversation is going to be about different styles of apologetics, and each of us here, me, Gabe, and JC, will each provide our case for the existence of God with our own style of apologetics and way of thinking about the existence of God. Each of us will provide a case, and after each person provides their case, the two others will critique them, provide objections, ask questions about their case, and eventually, at the end, the two others will rate the person's case on a scale of 1 to 10 and give an overall evaluation of how they can improve and what they think is weak and strong about their arguments for the existence of God. And whoever wants to go first will go ahead, and then we can get started with the thing. And to be clear, none of us are presup, so that specific side of apologetics is not going to be represented. Maybe we can do this another time with somebody who is, in fact, a presuppositionalist apologist, but nobody here is. So there are no presuppers here, but we do have a classical apologist, an evidentialist, and an existentialist. Well, few people here might have specific methods of apologetics that don't fit into either of these categories neatly, right? They might mix and match from different styles or have one that's completely novel, but those are the three general categories that we fit in roughly. So whenever somebody wants to start, we will go ahead, give our arguments, and have a discussion. This isn't going to be formal. We might not have our arguments syllogized, but we will give loose, informal cases for why we believe that God exists, and we will critique each other on them. And so whoever wants to go can go ahead.
Yeah.
I guess I'll go
So,
first.
Gabe, you want to start? And then I'll go, and then Chris can go last because we all know he's going to take the longest.
Okay, so we consider the necessary.
No, Chris, muted.
Oh yeah, well, God is a brute fact.
So Quine's theory of ontological commitment.
Anyways,
the possible very.
Anyways,
Already,
so
we're already starting this.
My method, as Chris said, is an evidentialist, not contra to existentialist. Who I would say that you have to have a justification for a belief, and I think everyone in here obviously would say that. I think that you can't just believe something off of like a feeling or an emotional commitment to something. I think you've got to have a rational justification for that, and there's many methods to do that. Obviously, he just listed a bunch of them. So my case for God would really start off with what we mean when we say God. And this is a very important thing to note because most of the times when people talk about does God exist, they're not talking about the same thing. And a good book on this is The Experience of God by David Bentley Hart, where he really sets out to define what it means when we say that God exists.
I co-sign that.
What?
Fantastic. I just want to say, go ahead. I co-sign that. Fantastic. Very worth reading.
And then the other is The Existence of God by Richard Swinburne. And even though I have my disagreements with Swinburne on his model, he at least tries to define what God is before he jumps into saying that he does obviously exist. Because, so, right, so my definition of God would be that there is an omnipotent being who has the tri-omni properties that we normally ascribe to God. And those are omnipotence, omniscience, and he's omnipresent. And then you can obviously add omnibenevolent. And I think that those four qualities are not contradictory, that they can, obviously they aren't contradictory. And there's a lot of literature out on that topic. But a lot of people would say that they do, that they aren't really contradictory in the sense that lots of like internet atheists will try to make them out to be. Like people who ask, like, can God make a rock so big he can't lift it? So a good source on this would be The Coherence of Theism by Richard Swinburne, where he really sets out to ask that question, do the omni properties fit well together? And so, since I've kind of laid out my model of God, I'm going to do this in a blog post. I've already started working on it, but it's going to be a lot longer down the line because it's going to be such a long article. I'm going to be laying out my case much further there. So, right to my justification for my beliefs. So, the first argument, and I think they said that I had to list 5. I don't know if I could do 5 or not, but
You can
They
do
said that
from like 1 to 5.
I
Doesn't really matter.
one.
You can do less.
Oh, Godel's ontological argument. It's over. No, I'm just joking. I couldn't do. We could do an entire video on that one. Anyways,
If we could understand it.
yeah, none of us have taken calculus, so. Anyways, so I know I'm going to be hated by my peers for the first argument that I'm going to use because both of them probably hate it a lot. It's the Kalam. So I don't. I'm pretty sure most of our viewers are obviously familiar with this because it's the most popular apologetics argument. But do you want me just to list them, or do you want me to defend each premise of each one of them?
I mean, I'd like to.
Am I supposed to defend the premises, or do I just list them?
Well, I'd like just like an
Okay.
give each premise, describe it, and defend it. But hold on, I have to go for 1 second. I'll be right back.
All right. Well, I'm just gonna keep going. So premise one of the Kalam seems to me the self-evident, and it's basically that which begins to exist has a cause, and it seems to me pretty much basically the self-evident that whatever begins to exist has a cause. A lot of people do try to point to things like quantum virtual particles, in which it seemingly pops, a virtual particle pops out of quote unquote nothing. The only issue with that is that's one interpretation of quantum mechanics among, I think, 7, and among those 7, a lot of them do cause out. The causal principle is not in contradiction with those interpretations. So in short, I think premise 1 is definitely self-evident that which begins to exist has a cause. And there are there's obviously other writings on that, like
So you believe
Neil Graham Oppie.
You believe the first premise is self-evident?
No, I think it is.
You believe it's self-evident?
Right, I think that it is very Yes. I don't think that anyone has ever came up with something that begins to exist that doesn't have a cause, in some sense. Whether it's deterministic or indeterminate, it doesn't matter.
Right, whether it's stochastic or deterministic.
Right.
Anyway, continue.
Yeah. I mean, obviously there are writers, like I think David Hume wrote that obviously one could conceive of something coming into existence without having a cause, but what one can conceive of happening and what actually happens are two different things. Like, even if I could conceive of something coming out of, without a cause, doesn't mean that it actually happens. So I guess that's my defense of premise 1. So is there any objections to premise 1 that you would like to discuss?
Something can come into existence without cause.
Yeah. I mean, obviously there's necessary objects, but I'd say that they don't. I don't think they actually come into existence. I think that they'd have to be eternal.
Right.
To be necessary.
Personally, I don't think there are any really warranted objections to this.
I mean, Oppie talks about it a little bit.
Right. I don't really remember
in arguing about gods. It was pretty much I think it was a reiteration of what Hume said.
Right, expressing
that one can conceive.
So
anyways, JC, you got an objection? Oh, I'm sorry, you weren't done.
No, I don't think so.
So, and
sorry, I was gone for like half the time. So,
wait, what?
I'm back.
Anyway, but what I was going to say is, so you reject Hume's argument against the fact that what is it? That everything that comes into being is cause.
I mean,
you reject that argument because you don't believe
his argument
is a good modal epistemic tool, correct?
Yeah, I don't think that because one can conceive of something, therefore it's actually true. like I can conceive that a unicorn created the universe. It doesn't make it true.
How do you determine
Like
is the modal epistemology?
what?
What is your modal epistemology?
True.
How do you determine?
I don't know.
Okay, so the thing is, what I would ask is, how would we determine what is possible aside from conceivability? Because it doesn't.
Well, I don't think it is. I don't think it's that it's not possible. It's just that we don't see it happen. We have to go off what we know. So
You don't think we know? At least
So
it
like
seems.
what I'm saying is like Hume basically, from what I understand, is he would say that that one can obviously conceive, his argument was that one could obviously conceive of things that come into existence without a cause, but it doesn't matter that you can conceive of it happening. It's what actually happens.
Well, at least
And as far as
Hume would be that it's possible that something could come into existence from nothing. And excuse me, and assuming that conceivability is a fairly reliable modal epistemic tool, then it would seem correct that yes, if we can conceive of this thing happening, that it could happen, right? And so, unless
I don't think conceivability is a correct tool to use.
Oh, okay.
Wait. Going back
because
to Hume talking about things. So,
Hume talking about things.
yes, talking about things.
That's actually true. He was talking about things.
Yes, talking about things that can come in without like like prior, it come into existence from no prior thing. I believe. I know Ben Walker
he
brought this up. Like, don't you think we can
bring
say
it up
that?
with Gregory Pine?
Yes. Don't you think you could say that in our world we can have some type of infinite, quote unquote, causal chains that don't necessarily need to have. So let's say that I come into existence, and there's going to be causal chains for my digestive system and everything. You're right.
Yeah,
so
this is something Aquinas said, where he said that
essentially causal series.
Yes, kind of.
Okay, so where are you going?
This is something Aquinas talked about, though, because this was what his counter to the argument that an actual infinity couldn't exist. He said obviously it could, that if one had like parents and then they extended back and 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 back, it could go back infinitely.
I believe there can be an infinite regress of per accident causal series, but not a per se causal series.
I would say
I don't think that.
Okay, go ahead. I was
it's
having
fine.
trouble.
But anyway,
I don't know where I stand on the actual infinite and the like non like I think it's obviously true that actual infinites do exist. Like anyone who's taken a high school math course knows that they do exist. If you take parallel lines, for instance, they each have infinite points and they meet at infinity. If you really like look at mathematical theorems, you'd find that they do meet at a point, and that point is called infinity. It's because we don't really know where they meet, but it's obvious that actual infinites do exist on lines. And I think they exist in planes. Planes have an infinite amount of points. And I'm not talking about airplanes, I'm talking about like coordinates and grids and stuff like that. They do have infinite points. So I don't think the argument that infinites can't exist in the actual world I think it's blatantly false.
Well, I think you have to distinguish between like.
Okay, do keep in mind though that if somebody's not a mathematical realist, if you're a formalist or a fictionalist, then you can easily reject this argument by saying that mathematical entities don't actually correspond to reality and that they're merely fictional constructions. There is no.
I think that's also false.
What?
I think I think it's false that mathematical entities don't correspond to reality.
Right. Yeah, you could think fictionalism is false or formalism is false. However, that doesn't mean that. Right, your argument only works assuming that you're a realist about mathematical objects. If you're not a realist about mathematical
that's true. I guess
then it's not.
I didn't think I would be going deep into this.
Well, I mean, you're discussing.
Anyways, back to the Hume with nothing thing, though.
Well, let me escape the good argument against me.
Well, no,
Gabe,
I'm trying to stay on topic because we went from can that happen to automatically justifying the second premise of can the. That's the second premise that we were going to be talking about. But I don't even use those arguments from math because I think they suck.
arguments
I
from
think that you have to go purely off of like. No, I'm being serious. Like the argument that like infinites can exist, and like if you had an infinite amount, you couldn't get to today. Like all of those are terrible.
I agree, they're very
Like
flawed.
Offie destroyed them.
Offie
They're
destroys
not just flawed logically, but they're flawed mathematically. Like
I don't
Offie got rid of them. Like they're done for.
It's over. They've been
But-
owned.
Anyways, back to Hume's point. I let me get my words out here. I think we have to go off what we know. Like obviously, I can conceive of a lot of different things. I can conceive of this universe. I can be like really small and be like, this is one of 660 to the 10 times 10 to the like 750th universes, and they're all inside of black holes. They're all connected by black holes. Like I can conceive of that, but it doesn't make it true.
Well, it makes it. Well, that's not what Hume's arguing. It doesn't say that it makes it true. He's always saying is that it makes it possible.
Yeah, but I would say that we have to go off what we know. And
Right,
until somebody came up with an object that could come into existence without a cause and could show that it could do that, then I think the causal principle should be assumed. Oh no.
Who's the king in this group who's a swimmer fan argues the most powerful form of natural theology the world has ever seen according to Plantinga? That is me! Of course. No, I'm kidding.
I thought you hated Swinburne.
I'm joking. No, he's referring to you, right? Because you're the Swinburne fan and you are you using...
Yeah, but I'm not using that. I'm not using Bayes' theorem.
You're not using... well, you are using a sort of Bayesian approach.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have my paper and pencil out here putting out intrinsic and extrinsic probabilities, putting it over the overall probability of naturalism. Oh, he's listing out the arguments that people use.
Real, if you're listening right now, it's interesting because we were just talking about modal intuitionism, right? And I was kind of giving a devil's advocate defense of conceivability as a modal epistemic tool of whether something could come into being from nothing, right? And I do think that if we accept conceivability as a reasonable epistemic modal tool, then we could come to the conclusion that it is possible that something can come into being from nothing. However, if we reject the viability of conceivability as a modal epistemic tool, then we can reject that argument from Hume. So, right, it really
I'd say even if we accepted it as a good tool, it just doesn't matter that you can conceive of it happening. I'd say that we have to go off what we do know, and I think that the causal principle is what we know.
Because if we can conceive of it, then it means it's possible, assuming, like I said, the viability of...
Well, yeah, I mean, it's also possible that God particles are caused by unicorns. I mean, it doesn't matter that it's conceivable, though.
Not necessarily.
If you get what I'm saying, though, like I'm trying to say that you have to go off of what we know. That I think that would be a fairly decent principle to go off of.
Right, but it would be...
I can also see what you're saying. That there could be a possibility that something could come without a cause.
Right, so your argument would be...
I just don't think that that's very damaging to the...
Or that it's probable that something can come into being from nothing, right?
Yeah, I don't think it's probable that something could come into being from nothing. Like
right, you think
nothing, not that weird like quantum physics.
Okay, gotcha. Anyway, so are you going to be arguing?
Can you cut out for a minute?
Huh? So I was saying is that like you believe that.
By the way, I'm obviously using Craig's version.
Wait, why are you using Craig's?
Why? No.
Use the tunes. Also, finitism.
Wait, what?
Causal finitism?
You don't know what
I believe in causal finitism.
Okay, so yeah, like defend that version of the Kalam. So when I wreck you, it'll be even funnier.
Oh man, I don't even know that version. I don't remember. I think it was 7 premises instead of 3. And the first premise was causal chains aren't infinite. And then I don't remember the rest of them. All I remember from that debate is that God doesn't exist, and I'm going home, is what Apu said.
So since I've already wrecked you on this argument, how about we move on and talk about a different argument? So what other argument?
Let me move on to premise 2. The universe began to exist.
Is it just me, or do I find it ironic he's using Alex Rosenberg's picture with as a Thomist?
Shut up, JC.
Anyways,
Why are you
premise
using
2. All right, so as I already stated previously, we've already been here 20 minutes, and I haven't even got past premise 1.
Because I've been wrecking you
Anyways.
so hard. You were getting owned.
Oh my
So
gosh. Anyways, don't listen to him.
you got owned.
Anyways,
Guys,
premise 2.
we're actually smart.
So I think everyone in here agrees the universe began to exist.
No,
I don't think anyone in here denies that, do you?
I deny that.
Penrose enters the chat.
Nobody did. Oh man.
I would say
Yep,
yes.
I'm done for. Even though, yeah, I would need Josh in here to help me argue against Penrose.
None of us. I find
it ironic that Chris.
Shut the fuck up, Aaron. Fuck you, fucking asshole, you little bitch.
Edit that out.
Okay, yes, I am bi. You didn't have to say it though.
Edit that out. Yeah, JC, you're gonna have to find a way to edit that.
I know. What do you guys think about Klein?
Anyways, back to premise 2. No one here is one of those. Oh, well, you see, the universe has an infinite chain of other universes that no one in here supports the Sulik model, do they? Chris is just gonna say I do just to be annoying.
Okay, so what I have in mind here, the specifically Quinian recommendation of determining one's ontological commitments by expressing an accepted scientific theory in the language of first-order predicate logic, and then committing oneself to those entities that must be admitted as possible values of bound variables.
JC.
Making due allowances
JC, do it.
Versus paraphrases. Here, the heavy lifting is
JC. Anyways, so until someone in here can object to premise 2, I don't think anyone in here does, and I don't think there's any.
So which argument are you arguing? Kalam?
Yeah, I know. I got here on I got this on a last minute notice, and so I wasn't prepared at all. So I'm using the trash one. Anyways,
okay.
Back to the topic. So.
Hey,
premise 2. So obviously, there's people who would
unmute me, man.
Anyways, there's obviously people who would object to premise 2. I don't recall Offie objecting to premise 2. I don't recall Mackie or Sobel. I may be wrong on that.
What do you think about the B theory objection from eternalism?
Oh man, see, this is why I didn't want. Man, you got me.
Okay,
here. I don't know anything.
Why
about
did you not give me this argument?
All I know is that time is tenseless.
The reason that this argument fails is that even if time is in fact tenseless, right? It's a fourth dimension.
Yes, hold on. Let me explain this.
There will still be.
So why this failed? Why is that?
There will still be causal reliance, but different points. Fourth dimension, right? Okay, so imagine it like this, right? In one point in time, something does not exist. Then another point in time, something does exist, right? If four-dimensionalism or eternalism is true, then there's not going to be any temporal becoming, right? These both exist tenselessly on different points. However, there will be a causal reliance.
Doesn't Craig say that the Kalam is coherent with B theory though?
Not his version. No.
Not his.
Yeah, he says his version is coherent with it.
I believe it is.
I could have sworn he said that his version is coherent.
But the thing is,
yeah, I could have sworn he said it's compatible with B theory.
Right, but either way, like when you had my argument against the fact that B theory would serve as a defeater is that when you have different points in the block universe, there would be points in time, they're still relying on each other, right? if I am pulling open a door at one point, and on another point in the future, very near future, the doors open, even though they exist tenselessly, right, eternally, I'm not sure. Even though they coexist tenselessly at different points in time,
Yeah,
at different points on this four-dimensional space, one is reliant on the other, right? Even though it has existed both eternally, both tenselessly, the fact that I'm opening the door at that one point, and the fact that the door is open at that other point, the fact that the door is open at that point is still causally reliant on the fact that I'm pushing the door at that earlier point, right? Even though there is no temporal becoming and they both exist tenselessly and they coexist, one is still causally reliant on the other, right? And so one can still
couldn't
form.
you still make this for the Kalam though?
No, that's what I'm saying, right? And since we'll still be relying on a cause that came earlier on the fourth dimension of time on it, just because there is a temporal becoming doesn't mean that it's not true, right? So if the universe has existed tenselessly and there was a first point in time, right, it would still be causally reliant on an earlier point. And so even if the universe exists tenselessly,
I would agree with that. I'm just not a B theorist.
I'm just saying how it's compatible, right? So I'm just going to summarize it. So if we live in a block universe and time is sort of fourth dimension, and on point T1, point T1 on the time dimension and point T3, point T1, I am pulling the door, and on point T3, the door is open, right? Both these points exist eternally, tenselessly, but still, point T3 is going to be reliant on point T1, despite the fact that there is no temporal becoming between the two. And so if at point T1 the universe exists, it could still be causally reliant on something extrinsic to it. Just because it exists tenselessly does not preclude existential causal relations between that ontological entity and another ontological entity. And so Craig's formulation of the Kalam is still compatible with B theory of time. And if anybody has any objections to that, I would be willing to look at them, discuss them, and see if they're correct or whatever. But that's not going to happen because I own them. And so, Gabe, continue.
Yeah, I would agree that it would obviously be compatible with B theory because it doesn't deny that it would have a cause. I don't think you could deny that it would still have a cause. I mean, obviously you could deny it, but I don't think you would have justification for doing so. Anyways, so there's been a lot of talk, and this comes up in the Carroll debate. Obviously, the scientific confirmation of the beginning of the universe comes up in the Carroll debate. And if you really want to see a good review of that debate, go to the Aaron Wall blog. I think that he has a very good review, and he also the main point that Carroll made was the quantum. What did he call that equation?
The quantum.
I can't remember it. The quantum eternity theorem.
Quantum eternity theorem.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Well, Aaron Wall completely. I think I would say that he did a very good deconstruction of it and showed that it was not a viable theorem to show that the universe didn't begin to exist, because I think Aaron Wall actually had a theorem that was compatible with it that still showed that the universe probably began to exist. And I say probably because when you go down to, as most people know, when you go down to the quantum level, it's more probability than it is certainty.
Right, because you have superposition and principle of uncertainty and things like that.
I would say that, but I would say that the universe almost certainly began to exist.
That's all the comments.
What? I mean, you can.
We're just gonna do a video critiquing
what's his name?
There's not a ton of epistemic humility in that assertion you just made.
Yeah,
assertions, claims.
Oh my gosh, I made a claim without evidence. Anyways, even Lawrence Krauss admitted that it probably did begin to exist, and it was in one of his debates with Craig. And I'm not a big Krauss fan, but I mean, if he
Kraussian metaphysician.
What? How can you be a Krauss fan and like philosophy?
No, as a Kraussian, I'm just fucking with you.
Okay, I was about to say, but even he says it. He says probably. I would say almost certainly it does. Even if you go down to the quantum level, I would still say that it probably almost certainly did begin to exist, and I would say that there are obviously models that are compatible with the beginning and emerging quantum mechanics. Stephen Hawking did this. Ironically, he made an argument against God that if that his model was true, then God wouldn't exist. I didn't really understand that because the physicist that he developed the model with said, "Oh no, this was stupid." I think his name's James Hartle. He said that I don't see why it wouldn't be compatible with theism for this model to be true. And there's obviously a lot of theoretical reasons for accepting a universal beginning. There's lots of theorems out there that I would say show that. For instance, the Hawking and Penrose theorems. Though I do think there are some models that could successfully evade them. I don't think that I do have other issues with those models, whether they're highly speculative or they have they just have other issues. And then the board, I'm about to be a Craig clone here. The Borda-Guth-Lincoln theorem, or however you say that first name, I don't remember.
Theorem shows that there is an immaterial,
a spaceless, timeless, immaterial, personal
creator of the universe. So,
anyways, but yeah, I think that when you take those couple of theorems together, and then you take the observable data, like the expansion of the universe, and if you like, what?
Okay, so I just started to realize that we're 32 minutes in, and like we haven't even gotten past the.
I haven't even got to premise 3.
I know it. Okay, so
yeah,
maybe
that's why I said I don't think we should just do a defense of it.
So maybe you can.
Yeah, maybe I should just do 1.
No, how about
maybe I'll just go faster.
How about you say the argument and then we object to it and then you defend it? Does that make more sense?
Yes. So I'm gonna have to mute Chris.
that makes more sense. Yeah, that's more.
Anyway,
welcome back to muting. Anyways,
how about we?
So I think it is definitely true to.
Oh my God, people! Come on.
But I've already established premise 2.
Nope, it's over. We're done. Anyway, moving on. So I think that Quinians.
Bro, I haven't even finished.
How about we move past the column and you pick up to 4 other arguments they want to talk about.
Right,
you give
hold up. All right, let me do the. You know what I'm about to do.
Arguments that you like. Arguments that you genuinely like and think are sound.
Oh man, you threw me off my game now. Hold up. Wait a minute. And yeah, I'm just gonna try to defend the contingency argument. I'm obviously not Alexander Proust or David Hart. So.
Do you have any Swinburne Bayesian arguments?
Nope. Yeah, I told you I can't use Bayes' theorem.
Why? It's easy.
Oh yeah, well guess what?
What?
Sensus divinitatis, it's over. Yeah, anyways. I'll just do the teleological argument then. Because obviously you probably have a really good objection to that I won't be able to answer, but anyways.
Chris left.
What? Well then I don't know who's gonna object to it because you pretty much agree with me on it. Anyways, let me just state the premises. So, I would say that under theism, a life-permitting universe would obviously be very likely, because God would obviously have good reasons, and I think people are obviously since God being omnibenevolent, as I established from the beginning, I think that he would obviously bring about all good states of affairs, and there would be no I'm not going to say bad states of affairs, but I would think that there were obviously throughout all states of affairs the greatest possible good would be brought through. Anyways, so this is obviously going to come in with Swinburne's theodicy that he presents in the existence of God. But So I would say that since God is omnibenevolent, he would obviously like to bring about something like humanly free agents, and I would say that humanly free agents are a very good thing. And then I would say that under naturalism, it is very unlikely that something like humans would come to exist. Um,
Why?
and I say unlikely because obviously there is a conceivability where it could, where like
Wait,
somebody like multiverse hypotheses. What?
wait. So why do you think it's unlikely?
So it's really
Oh,
so basically. I'd have to also talk about like single universe versus multiverse, naturalistic multiverse. Obviously, under a naturalistic multiverse, then it is at least somewhat likely that people like humans would come into existence. But under a naturalistic single universe, I don't think it's possible. I don't think it's probable at all that humanly free agents would come into existence because it's just I really can't say anything else, but it's just unlikely that all of the continents would fall into the life living range. And unless you could somehow show that it is physically necessary that they do so, and I don't think that that has been done. And nobody, as far as I'm considered, as far as I've seen, nobody argues for the physical necessity thing anymore.
the physical necessity of what?
So there's this. I hate to sound like Boyle and Craig again, but it's like the fine tuning of the universe is either used due to physical necessity, chance, or design. Like that. I don't think anybody argues for physical necessity. I may be wrong. Maybe Alex Malpass does. I don't remember. If he does, then I'm done for. Like, my case is done because Alex Malpass says so.
Or mouth pass?
Anyways,
Well,
yeah, I don't remember if he argues for physical necessity or not. And I don't know if the last I checked, Offie kind of. I don't think his chapter on the teleological argument was that good from last that I remember. Especially the argument from fine tuning. I don't remember his chapter on it being very exceptional. I may be wrong though. It's been a little bit. It's been a couple of weeks since I read his chapter on it. Yes, I read it. I just don't have the paperback copy of the book. I had the PDF. Yeah, so back to the premises. I don't think Chris was there when I said the first premise, so let me pull it back up again. I'm gonna try to the premises that I'm obviously gonna try to defend. So obviously I'm gonna be arguing from a type Swinburne type Robin Collins version of the argument. I think that those are the only good teleological arguments that you can use. Like, for instance, William Pele's argument was terrible, and anybody who's read about William Pele's teleological argument knows that it's terrible. It's just bad.
it's good.
Nothing else to be said about it.
It's good.
So, as I said, obviously, life permitting universe is very epistemically unlikely. Under a naturalistic single universe, obviously, if you could show that a naturalistic multiverse was a possibility, then yeah, it would definitely increase the likelihood of humanly free agents under naturalism. But I don't think that one can show that a naturalistic multiverse exists. So I would say that in short, my argument would be under naturalism, it is very unlikely that I'm speaking too fast. That a universe with life, or at least intelligent life, would be probable under a naturalistic single universe. And under theism, it would be obviously extremely likely that humanly free agents, or at least something like humanly free agents, would exist because, as I said earlier, God, being omnibenevolent, would prefer all good states over bad states of affairs, and that in the end he would want the most good. And I think that allowing the existence of humanly free agents is obviously one of the best goods that could possibly be allowed.
Okay, so
And
time
so
for me
that's
to.
essentially my argument that it's more probable under naturalism.
Interesting.
What?
Okay, so time for owning. So You say that God, one of the reasons he would bring about humanly free agents is that we are good and God wants to bring about good affairs, correct?
Yes, I would say that God would, being omnibenevolent, would prefer the best good or the best possible world, and I think that possible world would include humans.
But it would definitely seem that we don't live in the greatest possible world, right? Our world is very flawed. And there is some goodness, but there
Well,
also is
I'm hold on. I need to clarify. I'm not talking about the present state of the world. I'm talking about the in the end, like in the end view, it would obviously be better that humans existed than not.
talk about the data that exists now that deism and naturalism are trying to account for, right? And so you could argue
Yes.
something about future states, like certain eschatological theories and predictions. Right now, we're talking about explaining the data of humans existing in life and life in
That's
life.
true. That's true.
So,
Well, I obviously think that humans do obviously do like terrible things. Like as you have a good you're still writing your theodicy about it, but your examples of gratuitous evil obviously those are bad things. Like I don't deny that those are bad things, but I also think that humans do exceptionally good things.
right,
And I think that a world without humans would also be a world. Yeah, I'm not getting into this. This is going to get into Felix Culpa theodicy and stuff.
however, the problem
And
with this,
I've never seen someone get into Felix Culpa theodicy on the fine tuning argument.
you said that God wants to bring out the best of all
Yeah.
possible, right? And it seems possible that there could exist humans that do
Oh
good,
no, I messed up.
and so we
But don't do
definitely
bad.
there seems to be
But could they be free?
yeah, I think so.
But could they be free?
I think so.
How would they be free and only do good things though? Well, what would drive them to? What would make them only do good things?
They simply don't have the options to do evil, right? There's some sort of physical restriction on that.
But then that's not truly free.
What do you consider truly free?
The ability to do it, or like the option to choose like anything.
That just, what do you mean to choose anything? There are certain things I'm physically limited and I can't do, right? For example.
Oh, that's true. You can't fly.
I can't fly. I can't revive people when they're dead. I can't.
I think moral choices are obviously an important aspect of life, and you can't really make moral choices if you can only make good choices.
So you think moral agency is necessary for libertarian freedom?
Yes, I think that it's a good thing for people to be able to choose to do good and bad things. And by the way, I am botching these statements like really bad. So do not take my my presentation of these arguments and go, "Oh my gosh, theism is so terrible." Obviously there's a much better presentation by Robin Collins and by Richard Swinburne.
But you want to move on to
And
JC.
for the atheistic, yeah, you know what? God exists, and I'm going home.
So JC, would you like to present your arguments now, or would you rather?
Anyways, yeah.
Well, to you, it's gonna be like 3 hours.
Okay, so my first argument.
No, I will mute. I didn't. I pretty.
No. Okay, we're gonna limit it since I technically got 2, but I also didn't get to finish with the Kalam because Chris was like, "We're done." I think we should only do 1 for each of us, and then we should make another video doing like a different one and a different one and a different one.
That's because you were talking so much, and you took so long, right?
Yeah, I was trying to cover everything, which obviously I can't do now because I just heard objections that I've never even heard before.
Well, that's what happens when you get owned. Get used to it.
What happens when you don't know what you're talking about? Got him.
And this is what happens when you sit inside all day and read.
Yeah, you get owned by people who do it more than you.
This is what happens when I don't read David Bentley Hart all day.
Oh yeah, hell yeah.
This is what happens when you meet an Alex Rosenberg fan. Anyways, it's JC's turn. You get one. I guess you get 1 argument because I don't want this to be a 5-hour-long live stream where Chris is over here like. Anyways, so as Thomas Aquinas says, the 5th way
fourth, fifth,
He's going
fourth,
to present SCOTUS's cosmological argument.
cosmological argument. Hell yeah! But JC, do you want to go or do you want me?
Anyways, JC go.
Okay, so
JC, I think it's best JC goes because his is going to be a lot shorter than yours.
he's also going to be a lot
Wait,
harder to
Here.
own.
I'm trying to decide between like, should I go after fine tuning? Should I try the Kalam again?
Don't do anything Gabe has already done. Do your own.
Well, I usually use a lot of the same things
Well,
as
his fine
him.
tuning is different. His fine tuning is a lot different than mine, though. His is so. I didn't even give examples, but his examples of fine tuning are a lot better than mine.
Is that
Like
true,
obviously,
JC?
I'd use like the classical, like options, like the cosmological constant gravity, and then like the initial conditions. But JC has a different one that I actually like.
But it's still the same type of apologetics. I want to hear a new type of apologetics, like metaphysical
Oh, that's
demonstration.
true.
Okay, hold on. Oh crap!
You mind if I turn on some music?
No, Chris.
You don't mind?
No, stop. No. Oh my gosh.
Anyway, I'm simply kidding. Anyway, continue with your argument.
Well, I'm trying to decide like what I want to go for. So I would break up this argument. So it's an argument from I forget or unconditioned reality, and it needs a. Okay, hold on. Let me just give you the premises, all right? Because I'm terrible at describing things. So it breaks down into 4. So or actually 5 steps. So it'd be proof of at least one unconditioned reality. So when I say condition, it means like any reality that is dependent upon another reality, which that reality breaks down into let's say I need you know what, I'm not even going to go for this argument because I feel like I'm going to mess myself up. I'm just going to go I don't know what to go for, honestly, because I'm terrible at articulating anything.
Would you rather me just go with my argument?
Yeah, you go, and then I'll try and find one that I can actually.
Okay, so my style of arguing for the
Articulate.
God, it falls into what would be called existential apologetics. I make arguments from desire, moral arguments, arguments from passions, things of that nature.
And beauty.
Okay,
Beauty would
so
be an existential argument too.
what'd you say?
I think beauty would be considered existential too.
I also use the argument from beauty because
In
it
a
is
sense.
good.
No, bro. Like Darwin, like destroyed it. It's gone. Done for.
Be like, anyway, so the first argument that I will describe is what I call the Augustinian argument from desire. And this argument is that
This
human
is something Aquinas talked about.
that rational agents have a desire for God. Well, not necessarily for God, but the divine, right? Something above us that we have to worship and that we find joy in, right? A divine sort of immaterial presence that we put our trust in as rational agents. And to support this, we can appeal to a variety of sociological, evolutionary psychology, neurobiology, papers and experiments that show that humans do have a tendency to believe in a sort of divine, some agency behind the universe that transcends our own. And so this is something that can be supported with those.
No, Chris, I was going to do that. How dare you?
And we all know that you weren't. You don't have to compensate for your lack of good argument.
No, I was literally looking the papers up.
Well, then you're going to support my argument, which you're supposed to be arguing against.
Hey, hold on. This is
Thanks.
What?
Gabe left.
All right, go ahead.
I'm gonna wait for Gabe to get back before I own you.
Oh my gosh. Ooh, I could. I'm just gonna go. I'm. Oh,
This is one of Aquinas' 5 ways, isn't it?
No,
I think it's the 4th way.
It's an argument from religious desire. I think.
Oh,
or
okay.
like
So it's not the arguments. I was
transcendent
thinking about the
desire.
arguments from degrees. Never mind.
and no, this would be more similar to the 5th way. But anyway, since we humans have a desire for God, right, in terms of longing, desire for the transcendent or the divine, most sociological and psychological studies show that it is only intrinsic and not extrinsic religiosity that leads to our satisfaction and leads to our longing, right? When we believe in God for purposes other than simply believing and trusting in God, right, for possibly other evolutionarily beneficial purposes such as social status, political gain, monetary gain, right? Things like this, we aren't happy in the same way we are when we are intrinsic for the purpose of worshiping the divine. And so this can also be supported by a myriad of papers and studies. And so this shows that it is the desire and trust in God in itself that fulfills us and that we desire, right? And so what we are left with is the fact that humans have an intrinsic, innate desire, longing for God. And by trusting and accepting and believing in God, we are led to happiness and increased mental health and satisfaction. That doesn't benefit anything else of us necessarily, right? But it is this fact in itself, this intrinsic acceptance of God, that leads to our happiness, right? And so, because of this, it would seem as though it's plausible to assume from this that we do have an innate purpose, which is to worship and accept the divine. And essentially, we would take a sort of inference best explanation argument from here, right? Since this does not serve any evolutionary benefits, or since it could be theorized to serve evolutionary benefits, however, current models in which worship of the divine is undertaken for other purposes, we don't see the same benefits and satisfaction that we do when it's taken as an end in itself. And so we can infer from this that it is unlikely that it's any biological evolutionary explanation that accounts for why humans have an innate desire for God. And so
you could actually argue that it's not been beneficial in a sense.
Right. And so one could, even though there are some side effects, right, when it is not these that we aim for, right? It is God or worship of God that is our aim, right? So ultimately, an appeal to evolution doesn't make sense. And so, in trying to account for this explanation of our innate desire for God, really the only plausible explanation is that, in fact, this does come from God. Any other explanation will leave something left out, right? Other naturalistic theories make it hard to account why we see this almost perennial desire for the divine across humans, why this is what truly existentially satisfies us. Assuming that there is some sort of purely naturalistic force that is guiding human purpose, intelligibility, and decision-making, this becomes completely nonsensical that this is the case. And so we are within our epistemic rights to assume that it is likely, or it is true, that God has specifically implanted within us this innate, intrinsic desire to unite with and worship Him. And so, from the fact that humans do have an innate desire for God, and that when we worship and believe in God, we are satisfied, completely independent of any other evolutionarily beneficial factors, this gives us pretty good reason to believe that God does in fact exist.
I actually don't have any objections to that. That was actually pretty good.
Thanks. JC, you got anything?
So the only thing that would be an issue with me is if someone could show that there was an explanation for it from like an evolutionary perspective.
Yeah.
But again, I'd have to apply my own principle there and say it hasn't been done yet. Until it has been done, I would have to agree with you.
I think you're saying that they haven't discovered anything.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Say that again?
That they haven't discovered anything that would negate why we need a belief, like a natural belief, emergent belief in transcendence. So would this get into like babies having natural teleology, or would you say
Well,
I think I
You're
think
not
he's getting on the
them
principle.
having.
I think he's getting on the principle that also like people who are like generally religious have like for some reason they have like a happier life than like someone who's not.
I think
And
that's a
like
different
everybody
argument.
seems, yeah, okay, that could be, but also people have an innate desire to really like search out for something that would be kind of odd for them to do if it didn't exist and it had no, it doesn't seem to have any beneficial trait to it whatsoever for someone to want that. Like if we were just built to naturally survive, why would we want that? Like it makes no sense for us to have a innate desire for that. As I
My
think,
only thing is that you know, with like I think Chris accepts evolution.
nope, he doesn't.
Creation is Chris. Chris, prove creation. Disprove evolution.
I have this one book called the Bible.
I think so. You would say that we have a natural tendency to want to believe in some type of transcendence. Do
Yeah.
you think that transcendence necessarily has to be God? Like, does it have to be God, or can it be some type of spiritual realm, quote unquote? Like, how would you produce this into some type of deism or theism?
Well, when I understand the transcendent in this context, what I'm referring to is some sort of unified power beyond human capacities, right? Something that is immaterial, spiritual, and beyond this. And this seems to leave us with some metaphysical flexibility, but I don't really think it does. Because I'm not referring to, let's say, a realm, right? Some sort of Platonic abstract realm, right? I'm referring to something that is, in a way, personal with human beings. Now, this doesn't relegate us to a sort of neo-classical theism, right? We can still be classical theists and believe this, right? But what I'm not talking about is merely a bunch of abstract objects. It's something that is personal and can somehow unite with humans. And the specific type of transcendent that I'm talking about is flexible. That is true. However, this doesn't really negate my argument, right? That there's likely this desire for the transcendent, for God, for this personal agent beyond the universe, has been that our desire for it is from this agent itself. I think that this is still plausible and not negated by this objection. And while it is true that humans have worshipped a variety of gods throughout the past, what we do see is a sort of discrepancy between what could be said to be the fulfillment of this innate desire for God and creation myths of the past, right? For example, if you were to bring up a polytheistic mythology, these myths would be devised in such a way that they are not really made.
Satisfactory.
What?
They're not satisfactory.
Right, like when the Greeks worshipped their gods, they weren't specifically devised in a sense to be the ultimate face of reality, right? They were merely explanations for natural features of the world that they did not quite understand. However, they were still able to fulfill their reverence and satisfaction because they were divine and transcendent. However, they clearly were not ultimately satisfactory in their ontologies. And so now that these sorts of gods have been falsified, humans still have a desire for the divine, right? For that which is beyond us, that which we can trust in, we can have faith in. And since these types of deities, those types of deities clearly don't exist, something that is more transcendent, more fundamental, is still left as a plausible option, right? And so the worship of polytheistic religions that seem to have more demigods than more monotheistic religions, which seem to point towards a more transcendent and fundamental reality, they do have in common the fact that they are worshiping something that is beyond them and truly transcendent. And in order to determine which of these is correct, right, whether we're talking about a sort of polytheistic demiurge sort of transcendent or the ultimate classical theist sort of transcendent, we can reference other aspects of these mythologies and of Abrahamic religions and other sociological studies that would point to the fact that it is in fact the classical theist or neoclassical theist conception of God that is lent more support by these innate desires. So that would be my general objection to, or yeah, that's just my thoughts on that.
Okay, and this is actually a really hard one to answer. Like, I mean, I'm no naturalist, but trying to think from a naturalist point of view, like how you would explain that. I think you could just say that it's just natural human superstition. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be evidence. It's just
Well, yeah, you could say it's natural human superstition, but I don't think that would do anything. Like that's just an assertion, and his argument would be, why would we have that desire? Like there would be no beneficial. There'd be no beneficial. It's not beneficial necessarily for us to have that desire. Like it's not very beneficial. Like it wouldn't make sense for us to have that desire on a purely naturalistic world.
Right.
Like sure, like he said, like in the past, sure, you could say like the Greek gods, like obviously those were used as mere placeholders for coming natural explanations, but it doesn't make sense now for us to still have that desire if they were just mere placeholders. As
We're not. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just going to say that
that's fine.
we're no longer using our belief in God or the transcendent in order to explain things we don't understand about the natural world. Well, some people would still make those arguments. That's not why we believe in them, right? We believe in them because it gives us a deep existential satisfaction. We naturally desire them, independent of us trying to explain the natural world. And
Yeah,
so,
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have interrupted.
oh no, I was just going to say that. And so when we examine these classical creation stories and mythologies, we see that the reality they paint isn't the same reality of the divine we see painted in our hearts of our innate desires.
Yeah. And to add to that, this is going to kind of cover like the contradiction between science and religion a little bit. It's not using God to argue for what we don't know. It's that he is the entire explanation of all of existence. It's not just this. It's not just the gaps, the quote unquote God of the gaps, or the God of or Spinoza's God. It's that he is the ultimate explanation of why things are the way they are. And even if you could show a natural explanation for the universe, like how it came to be, I don't think that would even do anything to the existence of God at all, right? Because it could it doesn't, even if you ever could show how it came into be, you would never show why it came into be. And I mean, unless you're AC Grayling, then the why question seems to me still on the table, would still be on the table. Yeah, all right. I think it's JC's turn now. Just pull an argument from consciousness.
I don't know. I only know a lot of the science behind it. I can't defend it philosophically very well.
Yeah, I don't think you'd have to, though.
Okay, so far, Gabe made his argument. He got owned. I made my arguments, and there has been no good responses. I win, and so now it's JC's turn.
Oh my God.
It doesn't exist. I win. He didn't either, nor can you. It doesn't exist. I win. Do you not understand? 20 years, bro. 20 years. Anyways, yeah, I think me and JC kind of have very similar methods, though, which is going to make it kind of difficult.
Yeah, my methods are like super, super similar, close to identical of Gabe's.
Well, I think you could probably do a much better defense of the teleological argument, though, than I did, because all I got through was basically saying under naturalism it's not likely, and then Chris was like, why? And I couldn't explain why. I had no
do you want me to
preparation
do
for this.
do you want me to do the
Yeah, because you have a much better you have much better examples of fine tuning than I do.
Okay, hold on, I gotta pull up my numbers.
Yeah, I'm not joking. He's got calculations and stuff on a PDF somewhere.
No, they're not from a PDF.
I think he did them himself.
No, not quite. Not that.
Man, JC done found a new constant. Gonna be the next Stephen Hawking right here, being like, cosmological constant discovered.
So no, mine would be so most fine tuning arguments would go purely from the anthropic side. So they would say, all right, well, it doesn't make sense that let's theoretically that the universe is viable for life. I don't necessarily accept that. I don't 100% think that's viable. I think we have to argue more from a would the universe exist without like these fine-tuned constants. So I believe in people like Sean Carroll and some of your other more skeptical theoretical physicists will say that if there was a Big Bang, it is completely surprising that it happened and it came out with the universe it did. So first I want to address like is this an argument for a theistic God? No. Technically a deistic God could be doing this all. Technically a freaking, I don't know, quantum realm God could be doing this. I don't know. But
the gods from Lord of the Rings could be doing it.
yeah. So no, this is not an argument for theism necessarily. And I don't think
You didn't
many of
prove
our
your sky daddy.
no. So it's going to say that we have things like entropy, and entropy is going to be the constant state of disorder in everything. So, for example, a baby is born, their cells are moving and healthy and everything. Their atoms are moving and healthy. Obviously, the atoms regenerate and replenish and everything. That's not right. But their cells start breaking down, their body starts breaking down. And that is a symptom of entropy. So, the entropy at the beginning of the universe had to be so finely tuned. I need to pull up the exact numbers. Actually, I'm not going to use finely tuned. Had to be so close in. I don't know how to say that without saying fine tuned. So
Well, to be clear, fine tuned doesn't mean like what a lot of people misconceive it to be. Fine tuned is used by atheist physicists. It's just a term for the like narrowness of these constants. Like, so you could use fine tuned without it being a circular argument, if that's what your concern was.
yeah, well, because I feel like fine tuned is not. This is always associated with like a God of the gaps argument.
Yeah, I mean it is, but it doesn't have to. That's a misconception, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, so it had to be finely tuned to necessarily even make it happen. So, and then there are certain constants in which the universe would collapse in on itself if gravity and
None of us are stuff, right? But I'm
what?
not saying it's merely a bunch of abstract objects. I'm saying
Yeah.
it's merely a bunch of abstract objects. I'm saying
Okay, you're like cutting out.
yeah.
Sorry, you cut out on my thing. And then you have certain principles in which the universe would collapse in on itself. It would literally not exist. You could say it went back into the singularity. I don't know. It's not my realm of expertise necessarily. But would collapse in on itself, or it would just not form at all, or it would tear itself to pieces. Like they're just the fact that our universe is existence, not necessarily is existent, not even that there's life here, because theoretically, biological evolution could account for life existing, evolving on a magma planet. Theoretically, we don't really know that, but I think the fact that the universe is even here Now this is ignoring, things like eternal universe or, Penrose's theory or string theory or stuff like that. But if we're accepting the usual model, it's amazing that a universe is even here. So that's just a very, very basic overview. Because the numbers are definitely too hard to just go into.
So, wait, can you guys hear any music?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So, what I wanted to ask you, JC, is when you talk about the probabilities, what are these probabilities based on?
So they're going to be based on, we have like computer generated Big Bangs.
Music.
We have calculations. We have telescopes that can look back as far as we can. We have, just our basic knowledge about the solar system is going to give us part of how we know our basic law, knowing the basic laws of physics, entropy, second law, first law. These are just based on a combination of everything we know.
Okay, and so my biggest problem with this is, I think, the fact that you think a naturalistic explanation is insufficient, right? Because I believe it's perfectly conceivable that there is a natural mechanism, a natural substance, a natural law, a natural ontological entity that accounts for the universe being the way it is. Why do you think this is unlikely?
Given our current data, we just don't see, so if we theoretically go back, I mean, if you, like I said, ignoring any other theory like string theory or anything, we go back there, I don't know what mechanism there would be. I don't know if it's undiscovered. I don't know if I've read about it. I don't know if I've seen it. Like, not seen it, but seen it in a book somewhere. I just don't. I don't think I haven't seen the current evidence to point anything that we know just started the universe.
Well,
yeah, no. So,
but even if we did, let's theoretically say there was a mechanism there. My point also still stands, because even if there was a mechanism that started the singularity, then why did it come out in such this infallible can't speak today. Like, it's so improbable it would be the way it is. It would just it would start and it wouldn't collapse in on itself. It wouldn't start and
it would expand too rapidly inside.
And tear itself to pieces. Like,
how does your theory explain this any better than my naturalistic one?
Well, there would be it would essentially, I think it would be necessary that it did. I mean, not necessary. Obviously, God could have made a different universe. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that I think what JC is saying, that it's much more probable, given theism, that it wouldn't collapse on itself than given naturalism.
Well, so it's technically you could say there was something there, which I don't think is inconceivable. I mean, it probably was there. It's just a probability it came out the way it did, even if there was this mechanism.
Well, no, I'm just asking how God is a better explanation than some sort of naturalistic theory, right?
Right. So even on a theistic perspective,
quickly,
God is, okay. You talk first.
Okay, so I just wanted to say that my problem with this is that you said that we don't have any evidence that something like this exists. Excuse me. Excuse me. But you said something like this could exist, but we have no reason to think that it actually does and explains the universe, right? But I just think the same exists with the same is true with God, right? God could explain the existence of the universe and the fact that it turned out the way it did, but this is just another possibility, right? Sure, that could have happened, but we have no reason to think it is. That resistance to the naturalistic mechanism or substance applies just as well to God. And considering that God is a ontologically distinct and very unusual or queer way of explaining the universe, where it's a naturalistic entity. We're familiar with those. We're familiar with these scientific mechanistic explanations, right? So just throwing another one in there for the specific naturalistic phenomena fits well in with the history of science, how we think about the natural world and our natural successes, right? So appealing to God as opposed to these other naturalistic explanations, which seem to have the same explanatory power and probability, just seems completely unwarranted and ontologically risky.
I don't think they have the same explanatory power though, or at least intrinsic. Sorry, I don't think they have the same probability though,
Why?
because it doesn't seem it seems inconceivable to me. Yeah, put that meme from that show where the guy screams like inconceivable. But I don't think it's as I won't say it's inconceivable. I don't think it's as conceivable if you'll bear with me that under naturalism it would be the way it would permit the existence of a universe. I think it is much given what we do know. I think it's much more probable that it wouldn't have a universe wouldn't exist currently than it would.
I think ultimately it goes back to the question of why is there something rather than nothing.
Well, you could draw that connection. I'm just saying, like, for instance, I forget the constant. I think it's the strong nuclear force. If you change it, like stars won't exist after a certain amount of time, and if stars didn't exist, then obviously complex molecules can't exist, and if complex molecules can't exist, then planets and stuff and things of the such can't exist. And so we wouldn't have a universe like we see it. We would have a universe where basically all we would have is like hydrogen, and hydrogen would just bounce around and nothing would ever get produced, nothing would happen.
Like I was saying to JC, how does theism better account for this, right? Why should we prefer theism over naturalistic
Because we
explanation?
would expect on theism the universe to exist.
Why?
Like on naturalism, okay, I think so. If God did exist, as I said, it comes back to why he would prefer. I think he would prefer to make humans, in a certain sense, than he would to not. And on naturalism, there's all these. There's initially there's infinite ranges that it could land on, but there's only one. There's only one range in which it could permit life.
But the thing is, it's true. It's true for God as well that there are an infinite amount, or just...
Oh, that's true. This is where this is. I think this is.
No,
What's his name? This is what's his name's objection? Trady's objection, where God has an infinite choice, and if God could make infinite choices, and since he's omnipotent, he could obviously make any universe he wanted to permit life.
But I would say that that's what I would call quote unquote God-splaining, though. It's just saying, well, God could have done something else, therefore he didn't do it, or therefore it's illogical he would do it.
That misses the point of the argument, right? The argument
it's trying to since these arguments are initially probability based, then that would lower the probability to 50-50 for both of them, and you'd have to do further argumentation. Which is why I normally do present more than one argument.
Right.
Yeah, but I think we were only supposed to do one.
Yeah, like I would normally this is why I get so mad when theists like go on, and I've been guilty of this myself, so go ahead, call me hypocrite. But where a theist goes and they just put one argument and that's it. Like they just go and they put one and they're like, boom, it's over. I mean, like obviously some of them can stand by themselves, like ontological arguments are meant to be able to stand by themselves. But I mean, a lot of them are terrible. And a lot of them, or some of them I would say, are at least decent. I mean, I don't think Chris likes any of them. But I like Anselm. I kind of like Anselm's second one.
How does his second one go again?
Yeah, I think it may be his first one. I don't remember, but I know Gunalal's objection sucked. Where it was like, oh, I can say the same thing about an island. But then Anselm like destroyed him and was like, no, islands have different like you would have, I don't remember Anselm's word. It comes up in, for some reason this comes up in God, Freedom, and Evil. I don't remember why he chose to talk about natural theology in that, but anyways. But this is essentially a lesson to be learned to theists who don't just go in there like, boom, fine tuning, therefore it's over for it's over. Like you have to do a little bit more than just put one. I mean, some arguments can stand by themselves, like the Aristotelian motion argument and like the Thomistic proof and things like that. Obviously, they can't because they're a
Yeah, you
proof.
should have made that argument.
Dude, you want me to? If it took me that long to defend 3 premises, how long do you think it would take me to defend 47?
I don't think we had to.
We would premise 24.
Oh, by the way, Chris, I think yours would be partially also experiential apologetics.
No, I don't think his would be experiential. That would be more like people arguing from like the experience of God. And no, that is not what that book is about.
Well, I think from our desire for God, or our moral experience, our experiences of guilt, our experience of justice, conformity to a moral standard, or partaking in moral
Just to be clear, his moral argument he's talking about is not the like.
it's completely different.
It's completely different than the one that's like under like naturalism, moral values and duties wouldn't exist. Moral values and duties do exist, therefore God exists. Like it's not that one. I think yours was more along the lines of in moral intuitions.
Well, one of them is moral intuitions. The other one's about well, we live in a moral order, right? There are different agents, and these agents interact and have a system, and it's unlikely.
Yeah, this is for a different video though because we're already at an hour and a half.
I think I'm gonna head out soon. We've like covered a lot here, and I think
and JC's got to edit up some of it.
No, I'm not. I'm just leaving it, honestly.
All right.
Really, even when Darren insulted me and I yelled at him, but yeah, this was fun. I thought
Yeah, it was. I think we should do a like another one.
I need to next time. I need to actually be prepared. I didn't actually know the topic we were doing.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Oh,
yeah, I think Chris was the only one prepared, and I'm pretty sure he's reading Logic and
Well,
Theism
he
right
took mine, honestly. So
I'm pretty sure Chris has an open Logic and Theism in front of him right now.
wait, no, but that argument is mine, JC. Like I'm gonna like write an essay on it. Like it's
Hey, that's not true. I think I've heard this before.
yeah.
Well, no, it obviously all of these arguments have been said before to a degree. Mine's just a modified version.
No, bro, the Kalam is mine. It's mine. I made it. Like,
I'm going home.
hey, you think William Lane Craig made it, but like he doesn't exist.
What?
No one else exists. It's just me. You don't exist either. What are you laughing about?
Oh yeah. Nothing exists. You know what? I'm the only person that exists. I feel like it would be hilarious to see 2 solipsists debate each other. Be like, no, you don't exist. No, you don't exist. And then the moderator.
You're a figment of my imagination. How would you know if I exist?
You're in the Matrix. No, you're in the Matrix.
Anyways, it was fun.
Yeah.
All right.